Well, good morning to you, Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. To you, wherever you are, a wonderful good morning to you, Grenada, Carriacou. We say thanks for being part of the conversation. Those of you that's on Classic 105.5 and 105.9 on the FM band, or those of you just joining us again on television, GBN Channel 7, Channel 11, and Channel 20 if you're in cable. And we say a special welcome to those of you via our social media platforms, be it Facebook or YouTube, or those of you also on the World Wide Web at www.gbn.gd. I'm Joseph Cadore, and welcome to another edition of To The Point. For today, the 19th day of the month of April. Indeed, I'm assuming reasonably in most cases, that we've had a rather blessed weekend in most parts. I keep saying, whenever you get a chance to dung your tools, to me, it's a time of reflection, introspection, and especially the Easter weekend. If we were to put it into its proper perspective, certainly coming out on the other side, it should make us be better individuals. But notwithstanding that, maybe you're still a work in progress. He's still working on you, and you haven't quite gotten to that place yet. But either way, the fact that you're still in the land of the living, we're grateful that you are here. Again, good morning to you, and I say thanks for being part of the program. My guest this morning is the National Democratic Congress representative candidate for St. Andrew Southeast, David Andrew. Good morning, David. How are you? Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Joseph. Thank you very much for having me. And good morning to all our listeners and viewers, wherever you may be. I am doing quite well. I like to say the important things are good. I have peace of mind. I am in a good place. I've had to eat this morning. My family is doing well. And I thank God for all of these mercies. So the important things are good. I'm in a good place.
You had breakfast this morning. What did you have for breakfast? Let's see if I can tease you on this one.
My wife prepared eggs with some scrap of bacon or something, and I had some chocolate tea with crackers, and that worked well for me. You have done well, and I like the way you particularly put the emphasis that you let the world know that you did not do it yourself. No, I don't try to take credit for what's not.
Again, thank you for being part of the program. David Andrew, why politics? Why you, as a representative, NDC's candidate for St. Andrew Southeast?
Well, why politics? Why me? In a very global sense, politics is about service. It's about people. And in reflection of all my adult life, I have been involved in service to people. And I just have come to a place. In fact, I started as a classroom teacher. I went on as a guidance counselor. I went on to serve as a supervisor of counselors in schools. I went on to become the chief education officer in the Ministry of Education. And then I recently retired from the position of the director of student support services, the unit in the Ministry of Education. And all of my adult life, it's been about service and people, whether it were in the classroom or it were in guidance sessions, or whether it were developing curricula for life skills, or actually motivating persons on sporting teams, or whatever it was. I've always been in the business of service and people, and not just in my professional life, community and private life as well. And I've just come to a place where I recognize, I believe that more is needed, more is required. And while I've always grown and functioned with the mantra, bloom where I'm planted, and that has worked for me over the 28 and a half years I've been in the public service. So while that has worked for me, I've come to a place where I recognize that there's a lot more that needs to be done, that can be done, and I'm willing to avail myself to be part of the change that I think is required. And much too long, I think quite a lot of us have been disabled from involvement in that level of policy making, that level of service at that level. And if we continue, we'll just see a demise where few people get attracted to this. Few people are willing, and we just cannot continue to complain and not get involved. So hence, come forward. Now, and I really look forward to making as strong an effort as I can to see better days for them. That's why me. Why not?
Continue to hear the term being bandied about. Service.
Yes.
Change. And I wanted to first start service, because I know people have varying opinions and positions as to what service is. Some may say, well, my service, I render, I do this for you, you do this for me, and that is service. Some will say service, I offer, and I'm not expected in return. Some says it's both ways. When you say service, what exactly is your premise upon which you base the attitude of service?
Right. So when I think of service, I think of doing whatever I pursue with the best interest of humanity in mind. So if I'm in the classroom, I am not interested in who is the parent of that child by way of socioeconomic status. I want to know that I'm doing the best for that child, regardless to their background. For me, that's service. As a counseling therapist, as is my profession, when I see a client, I'm not so interested in the offense that that person has committed or the difficulty or the challenge that presents, as much as I'm interested in ensuring that that person receives the quality help, or I almost said service, but the quality help that is required. As a chief education officer, for instance, my job was to ensure that I attended to the needs of the education system. I saw the education system as a client. I saw principals as a client. I saw teachers as a client, the angry parent as a client, and to ensure that whoever comes and requires any degree of attention from that office, gets a quality attention that leaves them feeling satisfied. So when I talk about service, I'm talking about giving that energy, that attention, that time to ensure that the persons who require the attention get that quality attention, get that quality output that they can feel satisfied with. Pieces, whether it's something I get paid for, as I was in the public service, or whether it's something I do practice, like I've done quite a bit of voluntary work. It's about delivering a quality product that can benefit the persons who I'm called upon to deliver them to.
And I'm certain that you hold fast unequivocally, without any fear or favor, that service the people must be center and focus, the focal point of service. And the service must be to the point of that which their needs, they desire, and not which you intend to provide to them.
Correct. Because if you don't, it's like a doctor who tries to attend to a patient and addresses a complaint that the patient does not necessarily have, without even the doctor letting the patient know that this is a concern that you may not have noticed, but it is something that can affect you. Now, if that happens, that's enlightenment for the client, for the patient, and that could result in a better delivery to them. But I'm saying outside of that, you can't just say, well, I will treat you for this, or I will do this. So it has to be in response to the concerns, the issues of the persons and what they present.
Having made the decision to go deeper into service, what in your estimations are the more immediate needs of the people of St. Andrew Southeast?
Right. Well, to me, there are several, because I have been spending some time with constituents, and one of the things I have committed to is to be, like my profession requires, a very astute listener. So I've listened to many of them, and I've got several constituencies. There seems to be a lack of being listened to genuinely. And I think it's one of the mistakes that several persons have complained have happened, that they have not been listened to. And I said it at my launch, and I do believe that when persons put us in, and we need to listen. Regular basis, regardless to the application is constituents of it, another person, an independent candidate. If you're the representative of that, you have to listen to everyone. And it is from listening that the ideas will come, listening the challenges will be heard, listening that the agenda for change and for movement and transformation within the communities will be realized. And that is one thing that I think needs to be brought to the then there's some other things people are dissatisfied with what they have termed as too much partisanship, too much partisan representation. The intention is to change and to bring holistic representation across the entire constituencies. It's my fundamental view that the Constitution allows for us to choose. And when it comes to the electoral process, there are options available. And if one person were to choose another person as to me, there is no reason why we should punish in our operation that person for having chosen based on the constitutional provision. And so the kind of quality in representation is something that we tend to bring. Now, several other things. There are quite a lot of young persons who feel a sense of almost hopelessness. There's a cross-section of young persons who feel that they are limited and confined. Many of them have expressed that. Many of them have expressed concern that after 10 years and 12 years, they are still in the same place. 3 children later, 10 years later, they're no longer 19, they're 32. And they've expressed that kind of concern. So for me, that's something that needs to be addressed with a fair degree of urgency across the constituency, and I imagine several other constituencies.
But that sense of seemingly being lost, of which you speak, is that a failure? Who's at fault? Is that a failure of the government, or is it a failure of the individuals themselves lacking purpose and any sense of direction?
Well, I will not want to put the blame squarely on any one entity, but it's something that the entire society needs to share blame for. Now, in my family, if my son goes messy at some point, I would take responsibility for that as the father in the home. If he seems to lack purpose and drive and motivation, obviously I take responsibility for that because I have a key responsibility in shaping what happens in my household. And to some extent, I see government in light of their policies and things they allow to become the unstated policies and the stated policies even. The reality is they are allowed to become for our young people. So there's some element of that's there. But yes, persons need to understand that intrinsic motivation needs to be had. And they need to make life what they anticipate it can be. There is no limit. People even say the sky is the limit, but individuals need to understand that when nobody else believes in you, you need to believe in yourself. And something good can come out. James' story will tell us that. Regardless to what other persons think, and regardless to, there are tons of people who have made strong names for themselves, contrary to. So there's an element of that. There's an element of state to push the right kind of policies, make that easier, and even the communities need to become more involved in that process.
But I may quite easily say, Mr. Andrew, that everything that you said sounds good philosophically. It almost sounds like the script that everybody wants to hear, but that I may argue, that is no different from the conversation that most young people, most Grenadians have been hearing since Oyoho. Why then should I buy into this conversation that you're the man for the season, the man for the hour?
Well, I've heard that kind of question. And what I could say to people, I say two things. When I hear it's a reflection that there has been some degree of disappointment, much of which is
Okay, Dave Holford, for some reason, I'm not sure exactly what the reason is, but the audio seems to be going and coming, and it's affecting the quality of the broadcast. I'll take a quick commercial break. 18 minutes gone past the hour. My guest this morning, David Andrew, sent the NDC's candidate for St. Andrew Southeast. We'll take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back, right here on To The Point.
Join GBN on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. for Interesting Grenadians, a program that showcases the lives of interesting and outstanding Grenadians at home and abroad. It's Interesting Grenadians every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on GBN. Don't you miss it.
You know, one day I woke up and, you know, they painted a set of pedestrian crossing all along the streets. You know, nobody told us how to use that thing properly.
I know how.
You're serious?
Every safe, good driver knows about these things. As a driver, you have to be very attentive. You know you're coming up close to a pedestrian cross, you start slowing down immediately, looking to see if there's any pedestrian on the side getting ready to cross. If there is, you stop on the line that is a certain distance before the crosswalk. Then you would see the pedestrian put their hands out, looking directly at you.
Thank you. Welcome back to the program. 20 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. For those of you possibly just joining us, my guest this morning is the NDC's candidate for St. Andrew Southeast, David Andrew. David, just to encapsulate, we've been talking service. What is service? And the last question that was thrown at you. You speak of the need for change, and that you are the man for the season, the man for the hour. And many would ask quite openly, why? We've had this conversation over and over. What makes you so different among others?
right. So I was mentioning that when I hear persons make that challenge, it's a reflection that there is some disappointment with the kind of representation they've had for the better part of the last 20, 30 years, and much of which we'd have to acknowledge resides at the foot of this administration. Now, I have never been a politician, so I'm new on the scene, so much of that cannot be squarely laid at my feet. But what I point them to, I have been a public officer for the last 28 years, and you can probably check my track record of service in all of the areas. You ask my students, where I taught for the last 10 years at a secondary level, and ask my colleagues with whom I worked, if I were ever an absent teacher or an uninvolved teacher, then you get a cue from that. That wasn't the case. As counselor, I'm not sure that could be said either. As a supervisor of counselors, ask the persons I supervised. As a chief education officer, you get my reviews. And so the absence, there has been a track record for me of service and of delivery in the areas that I've been called upon to serve. And so I feel very confident that although my entry is new, that I will not fall short of service, but in delivery, given the record I have had as a servant.
You've been a servant of the people, and education being one of the highlights of your those years of offerings. What, in your estimation, as a former chief education officer, you took your stint just before that of the current Chief Education Officer, Angela Finley. What are your estimations when you look at our young people and the issue of education, which must be one of the pillars that drives the growth of the economy? Your thoughts, though, as a former CEO, what's going on there, right off the cuff?
So I think there are several things that we can point to in relation to education, ranging from making education more accessible, and I'm talking here about the tertiary level. I think that is something we need to, so that more persons have meaningful access to education. I think there's a need to transform the education sector to improve skills and vocational education more systematic. Now, I know there's been quite a bit of talk about skills education, but that many persons don't still be thinking that it is something for less academically oriented persons. Every now and then you hear persons refer to the skills as something that's a concept for persons who are not. And that's some false perception. I think that needs to be changed, and we need to look at where exactly this is to position technical and vocational skills. We need to look at taking them to the highest level possible, because I am still concerned that when we have major projects on our island, like a Silver Sands or a Sandals construction, the highest elements of technical expertise still need to be imported, which means that there is a flaw in our system, even though we give attention to the technical and vocational side of the education system. So that needs to be looked at and repositioned. I think we need to even look at the curriculum and refocusing it in several areas. There are, at the primary level, I think a lot of work needs to be done. In my view, there's a lot of overcrowding, and it stretches the children much too thinly, and they are not allowed to develop strong competencies in some of the areas, the numeracies and the literacies, and they're just bombarded with so many areas across the curriculum. And that is a challenge. I think we need to revisit that. And then there are certain key areas that I think must become critical and mandatory in going forward. The ICTs and how that positions us for meaningful opportunities in this information age. So it's not just about doing the subjects, but it's about ensuring that the ICT curriculum is reviewed and revised to incorporate the key programming and areas that prepare our young persons to take jobs and opportunities from home and work in India, from home and work in the UK, and those kinds of things. So we have to ensure that there's revision in that regard as well. And the artificial intelligences and how we prepare our young persons for that. So there's that. Even the areas of agriculture, and history, which are areas that are fast waning. I think those areas require quite a lot of attention and should be refocused. It's going to build national pride. It's going to build Caribbean pride. It's going to build the attitude towards subsistence. I believe every person must leave school with a skill and must leave knowing how to do a bit of subsistence, backyard farming at the very least. And there'll be those who will take it to the commercial levels where they can become commercial farmers and do this thing as a business. But so there are several of these areas.
But do you really get the sense, that our politics, that it is mature enough to handle that sort of conversation where politicians can appreciate the fact that, because it is often argued that it is easier for the politicians to leave the people in a state of ignorance and dependency so as to ensure that they become the focal point of change and not the people taking responsibility. Do you think as a politician you were mature enough to deal with that? Why do you say, are you really okay with some young technocrat standing up and saying to you, Mr. David Andrew, I don't agree with you?
Yeah, but listen, as young as I may be in the political world, I am very open to that. In fact, I don't want to become the person that everybody feels you must depend on. As a therapist, my job is to make the client happy. Right? As a teacher, I want my student to as a father, I want this. Like, yes, but I want him to educationally, financially, and all the other areas. And so, as a politician, I think we, unfortunately, it seems that we enjoy having persons think we are indispensable, that we do any answers. Nobody else could do it. Nobody else could do it like us. And that's unfortunate because it does not inspire confidence in people. It does not inspire productivity or thinking. But for me, and I can see the thinking within the National Democratic Congress, constructed National Democratic Congress under the leadership of convention. That's the thinking. It's about transformation, and it's about getting people to a place where they understand this is only, it's not mine, it's ours. And we all have a voice. We want to hear a part that we need to play. So whether I have my part, probably as a representative, but you have your part. So to join the community and ensure that our society is improved and transformed.
Politics has become divisive, color-coded. We talk about change. And I'm assuming you can well appreciate that any investment in change will take a period of time. There's going to be kickbacks at all different levels. Let's start in with at the governmental level. People have been used to doing things a particular way. If elected, how do you see yourself dealing with that sort of kickback that we can well appreciate, because change is not going to come overnight? And there are some persons, while they say they believe in change, it is almost arguably they're not willing to give up because it takes them away from their comfort position. As a politician, if elected, how do you see yourself calibrating and introducing that new era of change? Which starts with attitude.
So that is obviously going to be a challenge that we must navigate if we're going to be successful. Now, as human beings, we are creatures of habit. So when we've grown accustomed to doing things a particular way, we want to leave it that way because it's what's comfortable for us. The simplest things, like if I tell you, Joseph, tonight when you go home for the next week, sleep on the other side of the bed other than the one on the side you're accustomed to. You will find that difficult because your natural instinct will take you right to the side you're accustomed to, right? And so simple things like that tell us how habit forming we are as human beings. And it's difficult to break habits, but it can be broken. Otherwise, things like counseling therapy and things like education and teaching, the persons to change mindsets and to change attitude. We might as well close schools. We might as well close therapy offices. We understand that there's going to be a balance between gently with education. People must be included. They must be allowed to, they must be made to understand what the changes are and why the changes are happening, how it's going to happen, and they must be involved in the process. And I think when that happens, persons tend to be more incentive of people because they're part of it, they understand it, and that's the model that, in fact, the education we work with some of those models across some of our years. We get some change process on your student. It's no longer the school administrators against the students, but it's us together, led by the students, championed by the students, supported by the students. If we take that educate people involved in this field. Why change? How change? The process. Effecting the transformation change.
We're keeping our eyes on the clock, and again, we do want to, I'm not sure, but for some reason, they said we having some connectivity challenges, David, but I do want to, not sure exactly what the challenge is. But here's what we're going to do. We'll take a quick commercial break, though. When we come back on the other side, we'll open up the telephone lines and we'll engage some of our contributors on social media. My guest this morning is the NDC representative for St. Andrew, Southeast, David Andrew. We'll be right back, right here on To The Point.
Granddaughter.
This is a plastic bag. From February 1st, these bags are not to be used when shopping for food. So here's what you should do. Refuse plastic. Instead, bring your own reusable shopping bags and say goodbye to plastic. Choose to refuse plastic. Walk with your reusable shopping bags and help protect pure Grenada from plastic pollution. A message from the Ministry of Climate Resilience.
Coughs and sneezes spread diseases, so cover coughs and sneezes, please. Not with a rag or bandana. They trap germs. When you use the rag again, you put germs on your hands and everything else you touch. When you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth and nose with tissue. Throw the tissue in a bin and wash your hands afterwards. If you don't have a tissue, cough into your sleeve or elbow. Alcohol-based hand sanitizers are also effective in cleaning hands.
Welcome back to the program. 23 minutes on to the hour of 10 o'clock in the morning time. This is To The Point. My guest this morning is the NDC's candidate for St. Andrew Southeast, Mr. David Andrew. Mr. Andrew, thank you. Welcome back to the program. The number on the inside is 435-2041. And again, I do apologize. We are having some serious connectivity issues. But certainly we hope we can navigate our way, and hopefully that the second half will be much better than the first. And certainly I see the comments coming via social media, and allow me to say to you quite objectively, there are some things I did here at the GPN that we don't have control over, and that's while it has become part of the new norm, and you do appreciate every so often, the issue of bandwidth does render us a little bit on the back foot. But certainly we'll try to navigate our way through it. Again, David, thank you. Welcome back to the program. We have a caller that is on the line. Good morning, caller. You are live.
Good morning, Brother Joe. Mr. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
And everybody okay? How's your weekend going?
It's wonderful, thank you.
Pretty okay. Now, Mr. Andrew, you want to come into politics in the case in this modern time, right? You've been around a long time. You say you've been in education, you've been this, you've been that, a teacher, whatnot. What you have done for the people in your community for the past and things, been around in authority for the past time. And most time, asking the NDC can take on the community radio program. They always ask you about NMPD longer than them. No, you was around PRA time, boss? PRA time in 79 to 83.
But yes,
sir,
could you possibly we could just ask the question, sir, and then give him a chance to respond?
I'll ask a few and then I want to ask him a few questions more than what I ask, you know? So continue on and answer afterward, or?
I'm saying, so if you have a question, I'm appreciating you can get to the question.
Yeah, well, I want to ask him, he's been around a long time, so he must know about Grenada. But at the same time, I ask any candidate about Grenada development. They always tell you NMPD longer than them, they will come for 4.5 years and they do nothing. But I was trying to tell them that PRB international airport between 79 to 83. So why when I ask them a question, they always say NMPD longer than them? So 4.5 years, they can not more 4.5 years to move somebody, move the country, go forward, the ideas, the intelligence, what they have. I find asking a question, they all NMPD longer than them. But what you all been doing for the years, all been the years, Brizan, you had Mr. Buffett, you had this, you had that for all the past years. Tell me what to do better than the airport.
Okay, sir.
So,
thank you. Yes.
Go ahead. Comment because I wasn't saying in response to the question that NNP or any other administration was there longer than NDC. I wasn't making that comparison. I was reflecting on the question that you had asked. That person say they've heard that before. Why me as a new person? And I'm saying, as a new person, I cannot take responsibility for the greater part of the last 30 years because it can't be their feet. One of the things, but to a period like 9 years, that wasn't the question. The other thing is I'm aware that there are people in the same National Party Congress, still, I think all of us are aware of several. And I can point to them too, but that is the question. So I'm not trying to. For instance, I could point to in the 2A, where just in the Grenville area alone, we can talk about several things that were done and delivered in the 4-year period, after which they got voted out. So we're talking about the market, the Grenville market, which is still, in my view, one of the best market facilities across the island. That was there. You're talking about the bus terminus that we enjoy now. That came within that period. We're talking about the initiation to light the Victoria Park at Grenville. That started there as well. You're talking about the basketball court just on Saturday. That started. So there are a number of things that we can point to as deliverables within that short space of time, moving towards the transformation of Grenville and surrounding area.
Okay.
I hope you appreciate that.
Thank you. We have a caller that's on the line. Hello, caller.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Cadore. Greetings. Listen, Mr. Cadore, it's rather unfortunate.
I'm not sure, so I'm getting a terrible feedback.
I don't know, sir, because everything is turned off around here. There's nothing around me here, sir. Absolutely nothing.
Well, as you can...
I'm hearing the feedback, yes, I must agree that I'm hearing it also.
A feedback
I swear there's nothing here.
As I open my line. But let's go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Cadore, thank you, and welcome the gentleman to the Political Free. Listen... there are a couple of things. You see, I see this gentleman as an aspirant for candidacy. You have introduced him as a candidate. And even one time you went to as a representative. No. Words only belong to their context. If there is a job open, and there isn't any yet, as far as I'm concerned, then he becomes a candidate when he is nominated. And even for a job, he has to make an application and put his application under consideration. So after that, I'd say the following, Mr. Cadore. Whereas I'm looking forward to this gentleman being a legislator and not just a politician, now a member of the cabinet or anything, I ask the following question. 1. Information abounds that the Constitution of Grenada has never been made into law. No one can show us the Constitution Act nor the Independent Acts. If you aspire to be a legislator, sir, have you given any consideration, on how you will deal with a matter or contributing towards regularization of this major political anomaly? The second thing, as an educator, sure, can you see anything in the current legislative system, educational system, which you can consider legislating to correct as we move forward into the future for our children? I trust my questions are understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller. Mr. Andrew?
Thank you very much, caller, for those questions. Indeed, the first question, I think, alluded to the very relevant need for constitutional reform and for legitimizing and refocusing the Constitution. And I think that's a position the National Democratic Congress has always been in favor of, and it's something that we're prepared to support, something that we're prepared to look at, review, and probably even advance at the relevant time. Now, I am not one of the legal persons, but certainly I will be in support of relevant constitutional reform to ensure that it's more representative of the people we are and our needs and what befits us. In terms of the second question, I do believe even the Education Act, there are several elements in it that I'm aware needs modifying. I know there are currently some amendments being considered, but I do believe there are several elements that need to be reviewed and amended to more appropriately represent the conduct of education across the Tri-Island state. And so we'll be prepared to look at those too. That will be my answer.
Thank you very much, caller. Mr. Andrew, for your response. We go back to the telephone lines. Good morning, caller.
Joseph, good morning. Joseph, the connection in this program is very, very bad. And I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just talking. But what I find interesting is that for the first part, when he was giving the opening statement, etc., it was terrible. But when people start to ask questions, or when you talk, no, not accusing anybody, I just say I find it is interesting, this observation. You're hearing perfect, and I'm wondering what's going on. So I think this program needs to repeat it because he is the first time he's on the program. I want to say a special good morning to the gentleman. I don't know him, and I wish him all the best in your quest for attaining representative of that constituency as a politician. I know you're going to have it very, very hard because I believe you're running against Emlyn Pierre, and I'm telling you straight away, it's tough. So I wish you all the best. But I want to say again, on the issue of, and I don't know if you're hearing because I'm too happy with the whole thing this morning. I think it should be redone and let us hear, because if you are representing us as a Grenadian and we will be paying your salary, etc., we need to know exactly what you're coming with, what you're saying, we need to know something about you. So I think that this particular program should be done over where we hear everything clearly, because these are crucial times and we need crucial answers. In relation to the Constitution thing, I know Citizen Rolo always talking about it, and I kind of fed up every time he asks the same question, but that's his democratic right. But the thing about it, this gentleman is, and I like how you answer him, you're not a legal person. And the education thing, I also agree with you. But if my position is that if NDC wins, I don't find all you should be focusing really and truly on the Constitution reform, and it takes a lot of money and time. You have other priorities that you should get into rather than a Constitution. You know, what about the oil and gas that they promised us? That if they had developed the oil and gas industry and also the alternative thing, we wouldn't have all this amount of problems. Then you look at the seed program, where this amount of a lot of people on the breadline, and they're boasting all the time that, oh, they're increasing it so much, but that is a sign that it's poverty. Then you're looking at, I mean, if I go to list the amount of things that had to be given priority, there's also with the pension issue. So I think, with due respect to the gentleman, Citizen Rolo, that yes, constitution reform, it is important, and of course everything is important, but you have to think about priorities. People ain't really straight. Right now, people stressed out, they don't have money, so you have to check on what will develop the people to give them food on the table. That's what you should be concentrating on, not constitution.
Okay,
but
cool.
all the best, and Joseph, try and see how you could rectify this problem and have that gentleman over so we could hear clearly what he's saying, because these are crucial times. We need to hear from all the candidates on all sides, everything clearly, so because I'm not happy with the quality of programming this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Mr. Andrew?
Well, I'm not sure I've heard clearly enough what the caller was saying. I heard in bits, I think. So I'm not sure I'm in a position to
Well, she was just sharing some. I think in short, she was highlighting the fact that should the NDC get into office, that in her estimation, there should be greater focal points of interest besides that of the point that was brought to the fore by the previous caller, that being the issue of the Constitution. I guess it was just a matter of she expressed her opinion on that. We go back to the telephone lines though. Good morning, caller. You alive?
Good morning, Joseph, and good morning to Brother Andrew. Brother David, good morning. And welcome to the program. This is Herman here. Well, we go back a long ways. We grew up as family. And you know what the good book says about the episode with David and Goliath. It may look so now, but you know what the outcome was. So I want to encourage you to go forward. And two things I observe from your constituency, because I'm from that constituency, is something that needs attending from the first day you get into office. Is that bridge in Maki, that Monksili bridge there, that is a disaster waiting for a number of our people to die. So the day after you get into office, you have to start addressing that. And the other thing is the straw industry of St. Andrew Southeast that is dying, if not dead yet. Have a good day. God bless you.
Thank you, caller. Mr. Andrew?
Yeah. Thank you very much, caller, for your warm words. And indeed, across all the constituency, I've been in touch with constituents, and some of these things have come up, from Telescope right down to Crowshoe. And I've taken note, because it's my intention as a servant of the people to address the issues and concerns that they raise if I'm going to be their representative. So I take that and I hear that and I add it with those that I've already noted in my quest to be the representative and to serve the people of my constituency. Thank you.
435-2041, that is the number to get in on the inside. We have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You alive? Good morning, caller. You alive?
Good morning.
Good morning to you, caller.
Welcome to the speaker, the guest, or whoever. I just want to ask one simple question. Are you all ready to rule or govern this nation the way the people want it to be? Because nowadays I realize that what is taking place on this, well, let's say worldwide, men are very thirsty behind power. But when they get up there, will they be ready to support the nation in the way and the people that they want them to, or just get up there and say, don't cock up the foot? Because this is what we've been experiencing time after time. And I don't think I realize that there is really and truly readiness for different people coming in, because like as though this kind of mindset in Grenada is one kind of party where I see have the kind of potential. These people, I believe, what is going on is a power thing, and I don't want that to be happening. God forbid. If you all come in, are you all ready with it? That is the question. Are you all ready to be the people of ruling situations where the nation and people are depending upon you all? Thank you.
Thank you. Question to you, Mr. Andrew. Are you ready?
I can certainly say I am very ready. I have, if someone would agree, know this is a new element of leadership, but even then I've had the exposure and I've been able to lead at national levels and even the regional levels too, at the level of UNICEF and some of those agencies. So I am confident that I'm ready. And more importantly, the team of persons with our new leader, there's a different agenda. Now we've looked carefully at some of the biggest shortfalls of our predecessors. And while we appreciate the foundations that they've set and all of the positive things that they've put in place upon which we can now stand, so we acknowledge them and thank them for that. We do acknowledge that there have been some shortfalls that we as persons coming in, we're learning from as we embark on this journey. So the likelihood of repetition of those errors, it is very slim. And so are we ready? Yes, we are. We're ready to govern. Somebody has to start at some point, and we have to acknowledge that. There are several places across the world where, in fact, some of the most renowned leaders were much younger than we were, and we are, even in Grenada. And so I don't want us to think that I've heard it bantered around about the youth. I'm not sure I'm as young as people might make it sound, but I spent years, in 20 years. So it's not that I'm thinking. But at the same time, people must start somewhere. Maurice Bishop started somewhere. All of the leaders, the president of the Ukraine, who is, by the way, younger, has started somewhere. And if you have the correct team of persons around you, like I know we do, it's likely to be a success story. So I'm confident about our ability to govern and to rule and
We have another caller on the line, which will, from all intents and purposes, be the final caller for the morning. Good morning, caller. You are live.
Good morning to you, Joe, and good morning to all your followers and to your guest this morning, Mr. Andrew, or Andrews, I'm not quite sure.
Andrew.
It is very, I'm very suspicious about the problems we're having. I hope that my suspicion is wrong, but I would not rule out the possibility that it may be engineered by those who do not want you to be heard. But we are hearing you.
But I'm not even sure how we've gotten to that point, caller.
You know, I'm just saying I'm hoping. Because I've heard of people have problems when they do things, and it sometimes it's not just accident, sometimes it's malicious. But not from GBN's point of view. I'm not saying GBN. Please, I'm not saying it's GBN.
Do you have a question, sir?
Yes. I have a concern. I've heard Mr. Andrew, and he has expressed a concern about being able to change things. And I would say to you, the state in Grenada today is a very difficult one. Your challenge to win the election or govern will be challenged by the new culture of dependency and handouts, which has now been entrenched. It's now the new subculture in our country. And I wish you guys luck. But we have gone down that rabbit hole so far. You know, I've heard of a case of someone not supporting a party because he was asked to apply for a job. He felt he should have been just given the job. Why do I have to write an application? That's how far down that rabbit hole we have gone. People are so used now, accustomed to being given things. The bars are being kept busy on the weekends by people who bring money to keep drinks running. Difficult. We have gone a bad way. But I wish you all the best, and I trust that you guys will be successful. And if successful, you are prepared for that challenge to redirect our country from the path where we are headed at this point in time. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck.
3 minutes on to the hour in the morning time. Your thoughts, your comments, sir, and then your closing remarks.
So thank you very much, Paula, for those comments. Indeed, I am aware, and our team is aware, that there is this pervasive culture of seeming dependency. as you walk through some places are quite content to say, well, at least I'm getting $400, and so we are aware that there's that. But I say to people, as difficult as it might be, to leave this task unaddressed, unattended, and to not make an attempt to intervene and to try to change it is a greater cardinal sin than to just allow it to persist. So I'm confident that we have to do this. It's a necessity for the preservation of our nation, our tri-island state, and we are aware that when we get in there, we are going to have to work very strategically, assiduously, I may say, to change things through education, teaching people the value of work, because sometimes people think work is just hard, but there's a value psychologically, economically, and socially that work brings. And notwithstanding the economics of it, when it impacts the balance of trade and it impacts the economic well-being of the entire state. And so we would have to gently changing that while we provide the avenues. It's one of the multiple approaches technologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. And again, we want to say with deepest apologies for the challenges we've had with audio. I have to do a make-up with you that you and I would make that up, but it would mean that they would want to make sure that we eliminate any cause for having any connectivity challenges. It means you may have to journey down. You'll have to journey from St. Andrew and join me in studio. You and I would work out, the scheduling on that door. But again, we do apologize for the connectivity challenge. As you can well appreciate, Grenada, the issues that relates to internet is not the first time we've had it, and there would continue to be those challenges, which is totally outside of the control of the Grenada Broadcasting Network. And certainly, again, but I do say thanks to you. Thank you, Mr. Andrew, for being part of the conversation. Thanks to all of our listeners, all of our viewers, wherever you are. You are. Again, my apologies for the distorted audio quality. But certainly, as I promised you, Mr. Andrew, you and I, we are going to reschedule to have you right in the studio next to me, where, as I say, we can eyeball each other and have this conversation yet again. From all of us here at the GBN, we say thanks for being part of this conversation. It was a pleasure being here with you. So, peace and love to you. Have yourself a really wonderful day. And as always, encourage you to continue to live life and love life, taking the time to find your divine purpose and your destiny and fulfill that God-given purpose which you have. So long. God bless.